Previously on Let's Build a Thing.
Because some parts, smaller parts are black, and then I'll just go on top of it with the metal colors that are required for the build. I'm kind of thinking now, or second guessing myself, whether or not it was the right idea to glue all the things together.
So I was gonna do the frame, but then I looked at this motor and I said I need to do something, and I need to do some extra detail work, and I painted this in. I did this by hand. I did it off camera because it was kind of a fiddly thing to do. I think really make the whole thing much more interesting to look at. So welcome to part 2 of my Let's Build a Thing motorcycle Moto Guzzi. This is a very fun motorcycle to build. However, I've been having some trouble because I've been kind of clumsy and I broke stuff and I did something bad with putty and stuff, and it's just taking me a little longer to put together than I usually would. So I'm probably gonna have to do a fourth part, which is not planned, but you know, things like this happen. Doesn't matter, it's gonna be fabulous at the end. So enjoy the second part of the build. So here we go, diagram 4, which is the representation of the frame and the stand for the motorcycle. As you can see, not a very huge deal, but there are parts which need to be individually painted, and that makes the whole thing much more challenging. Now here I'm just, like always, cutting out pieces from the sprue and making sure that I clean them before I test fit them and paint them all together. Like I said, the motorcycle, when you're doing a motorcycle, you have to be very methodical when you're doing it, because there's a lot of small parts that need to be painted before gluing them together, as opposed to like a tank or a plane or even a car, where you can basically glue a lot of things together and then paint them all at once. That's why the motor or the engine for the motor went together much quicker and easier than this is going to go. So that is why I want to do a fourth part. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing here, just cleaning out stuff, test fitting, and yeah, just enjoying myself. Here I aligned the two halves of the frame together, which by the way didn't go as smoothly as I hoped, but in the end I did. I had some fit issues, unfortunately. Then I just, applied some extra thin cement and, waited until it dried. Here I am going to be sanding really fast because there are some seam lines left. I used the medium grit sanding stick for this job and then went to more finer and finer, but I don't show this, I think, on this video. You don't have to do this, but I did because it bothered me. So yeah, I'm just gonna make it pretty before I use the primer on. I decided to cover the frame in the fine Tamiya primer before applying Tamiya paint. So guys, this is how the frame looks when I sprayed it with the Tamiya primer, the fine primer. The reason that I've chosen to do the fine primer and primer in general is because I find that the paint sticks much better. It's not necessary, to be honest, but I just like to do that on larger surfaces anyway. And the second is that you can see, hopefully, if my camera will focus, there's a seam where the two halves met, and there's a little edge. And also I see that there's a little sprue that I left on, a piece of sprue that I left on the part which I'll have to tend to, and the back as well. I hope you can see it. There's an edge. I knew that there was an edge, but now I know how much I have to fill it with putty. I mean, to be honest, you won't be able to see a lot of this stuff because the engine is going to be right here, and you probably won't see the top. So, but it bothers me, so I'll try to fix it as much as I can. So yeah, that's basically it for now. I have to just fix it. These are going to be just some still images of the frame where I used putty from Vallejo, and then I just sanded the seam lines, top and bottom. And then I use primer again, and the next shot will be me painting the frame in black. Here I'm just test fitting all the side portions of the frame to see how they go together and to see where I need to mask the bits that will stick, because I'm not going to use CA glue but just regular cement. So I'm just going to put liquid mask on the pieces here like you see, and you know, wait until it dries and then just cover them with paint. No primer, just paint, and then afterwards I'll scrape those things off and glue them together. While the liquid mask was drying, I decided to glue together the stand for the motorcycle. This went together pretty okay. I did have some trouble lining everything up because it was a little wobbly, but in the end it kind of gave in and stood together and it was all nice and pretty. After that I just decided to quickly spray it with the Tamiya X18 color in black. This stuff is really great, and I used it to paint the stand for the motorcycle, and it is really nice. When it dries, it's basically just like chrome. Really good color for chrome. Here I'm just painting some of the other parts from the frame in black. After the black color has cured, I just sprayed them quickly with the Tamiya's X11 aluminum color and then continued on. And now we are on step 5, which is basically a very straightforward step, but it took me a little bit longer to finish because I decided to do some modifications, as you will see in the future. This step is basically just taking out the parts from the sprue, cleaning them up, and then doing the magic with my drill. And the magic happened with my trusty drill, where I drilled the vent holes in the discs so that it will look much more realistic. I used the smallest bit that I had. I think it's a 0.1 mil drill, and yeah, this took a while. But it was great. After that drill marathon, I just painted all the parts that I cut out from the sprues, the wheels and the discs in the black color, waited until it dried, and then used the metal colors that I needed to use to paint them, and it turned out brilliant, especially the wheels. The wheels really popped out. You'll see, just wait. There we go, all nice and painted. Now I'm just waiting until this paint dries and moving on to the next step. The 6th step is basically very straightforward, just like the 5th step was, but it did take me quite a while. Here you have to assemble the shock absorber and the transmission, but the shock absorber is colored in different colors, so you have to take a little bit of time to do it properly, just like everything else on a motorcycle. Here again, I'm just cutting out the pieces from the sprue, cleaning them off, and then test fitting them together to see how they go, and then afterwards I'm going to be painting them and gluing them in place. The shock absorber was painted in 3 colors, red, black and aluminum. The first step was red, then I masked it off, used the black, masked it off again, and then painted it in the aluminum color. And at the end I used clear coat. Here I'm just painting the wheels in AK's Interactive Extreme Metal Chrome, and it's really great. You'll see they really pop up nicely. And this is painting the transmission cover of the motorcycle. Here I'm already painting the discs. I cut out the masking tape in the shape of a circle and put it on the center so that I wouldn't paint every single thing, because the center is painted in gold. I didn't film the masking part of the build because it's basically just cutting out a circle and then, you know, covering it. And here I'm doing the opposite, so I, you know, the hole that I was left in the masking tape, I just used it and as a mask for the center. Yeah, that's basically it. Nothing really fancy. And this gold is really great. This color is nice. So here I'm just painting the frame that houses the back wheel of the motorcycle, and I painted all the individual parts before gluing them together, and that wasn't really a good idea because it was really time consuming. I should have just glued the whole frame together and then painted it in black. It would be much easier and much faster. Here I'm just doing some detail work on the drive shaft of the motor. I'm using this X11 aluminum color to pronounce the metal ring around the drive shaft, and then I'll be using X10 to pronounce the coil that is seen. Probably not very good on the camera, but in real life you can see it. After 2 clear coats on the wheels, I decided to do some detail work on the wheels themselves using the XF1 color. So there you go, guys. This is basically half of the build if I include the motor, which is already done. Some of the things still need to be a little bit refined, like these brakes. I have to kind of go with the paintbrush and do some fine detail work on the bolts. If I can focus on them, see there's a little black spot where the paint kind of got smudged. Yeah, that's a thing here too. The frame is okay, the stand is okay, the wheels are okay, and those have already been clear coated. So yeah. Now it's time to do the next big thing. Now it's time to assemble the wheels together and make them as one. First, I just put some decals on the rims of the wheels, and I did only one side because on the other I kind of damaged them. Yeah, that's a thing. So now they're just on one side. Here I'm putting in the glue in the holes, but I drilled out the holes a little bit to take out the paint, and now I'm just sticking the disc onto the wheel. These tires are awesome, but they do need a little cooperation to go on the wheels themselves, but you know, nothing really eye-watering. So just like on the back wheel, I scraped off the paint so that the glue will be able to stick to the plastic. Another jump, and now it's time to actually assemble the transmission box and the shock absorber. In step 7, I have to assemble the back frame to house the back wheel. Here I'm just showing you that I removed the liquid mask from the parts that I'll be gluing together. So here's a quick update about the build. So this frame, I think I should have glued it together before painting it, because now I saw that I can do this, you see, to protect the spring from paint. And yes, I could have just glued it together and it would be just fine. But okay, just so you know, if you guys are gonna build this, you can do it like this and protect the spring transmission for the power, because this motor doesn't have a chain but a shaft, drive shaft, I remember. So that's one thing. Okay, so this is just the stand, very silvery. This is a nice color. I like this color. I think this is the transmission. This might be the transmission, yeah, because it goes on the rear wheel. My god, my pronunciation is horrible. I done some weathering, as you can see, some black. I just pronounced the black lines with the Tamiya panel liner, and these came out really good. The brakes, the front brakes and the rear. Look at this, really nice. Gold color is used to do some detail work on the Brembo calipers in the back. While everything was drying, I decided to jump ahead to step 8, which was the front end of the motorcycle, and I started with the front forks. Motorcycles usually have a lot of chrome parts, and this motorcycle is no exception. The problem is that some of the chrome parts need to be painted, and that can be a little challenging. Here I'm just doing some detail work on the motorcycle's dash. After the painting, I assembled the motorcycle dash. Because the front forks need to be painted in different colors, I masked off the areas that I don't want to be painted and then proceeded to paint. Now, some scale modelers take off the chrome either by sanding it down or using some sort of chemical to take it off. I did the lazy way and just painted it on, which isn't ideal, to be honest, but if you use clear coat and at the end, it's okay. On to the handles, and these are the colors to be used on them. And now it's time to tackle the front fender. Because the front fender is black, I need to put primer on it, and specifically the white surface primer, so that my red color is going to be red and not dark red, which I don't really want.
As you can see, I've primed the front fender, and this time it was crucial to prime the fender because I'm going to be using very bright colors. In this case, I'm going to be using a red color to paint the fender, and it's a good idea to have a lighter color for the base coat, not only for the paint to stick better, but so that you get the right color. If you use a black undercoat, the top color is going to be much darker, and you're going to have a very difficult time covering it. I basically just glued a piece of tape on my finger, then stuck the fender onto it so that it sticks when I can paint it. See, I can like wiggle it and it won't fall off. Now the bad side is that I have to wait a little bit for this thing to dry and for me to handle it properly. But this Tamiya white primer should dry pretty quickly. I sprayed it outside, I didn't film it because the primers are enamel based and they do stink up the room if you do it inside, so you know, just take that into account. But yeah, I think I'll spray it with one more coat because there's some little black spots that I can see still. And then I'm gonna wait until it dries, flip it around, and do the bottom side.
While the fender was drying, I decided to paint the front calipers in first the black color and then the gold. Now this is the fender, the front fender that is drying still a little bit. It came out nicely. There's a little doo-doo on the front. You see the little spot? That's a little annoying. I'll have to sand it out. I've painted these handlebars. They're still drying. See here, it's like very sparkly. The paint is still like not fully dried. I have to paint the sides of the fender. These are still need to be painted. Then I've painted all of these things. These and these. These are the side mountings for the front headlight. And the top of the handlebars. This is also painted, and the middle portion for the handlebar. I've also painted the headlight, the back headlight. The back portion, I will leave the front portion, the chrome. So it's gonna be a little contrast. I'm jumping a little bit back and forth on this build, but this is where I've glued together the transmission and the back wheel. So at long last, I was able to fit the back wheel into the frame. This part was a little bit tricky because I had to align the drive shaft with the hole in the center, as you can see, and it did not want to go in. And I was bending the frame in various ways, and I was really nervous at this point that I'm gonna break it, but I managed to wiggle it into place and then secure it with 2 screws, one big screw and one small screw, and then basically that was it. The back portion of the bike was done. While the front parts of the motorcycle were still drying out, I decided to do the exhaust, which is basically just a couple of chrome parts. I took them off the sprue, cleaned them off, and glued them together. Before I glued the 2 halves together, I used a knife and scraped off the edges to take off the chrome, because otherwise the glue would not stick.
Right, so the exhausts. Now these are gonna be shown pretty well, so I just don't want to see the seam lines on top and the bottom to be shown so prominently as they did before. So what I decided to do is to scrape off the seam lines and then kind of use this glue or cement to kind of soften the edges a little bit with the glue. That will make sure that, well, at least I'm hoping that the edges are gonna soften up because this melts plastic. And then I'm gonna give it a base coat of black, and then I'm gonna just spray it with this thing that I did the frame. So where is it? This thing. And I'm gonna get this beautiful, hopefully chrome finish afterwards. So that is the plan, that is the hope, that is the dream, ladies and gentlemen. Whether or not the dream will become a reality, we will see in due time. So that's one exhaust. Let's do the same on the second one. Okay. I hope this is really gonna work. I don't want to use putty that much, because putty is just annoying to take off and sand, and this is a very round exhaust, round surface, and sanding it will require me to take off excess that will probably lead to making a flat exhaust on top or the bottom, and that is not what I want to do. So hopefully this trick is gonna work. Hopefully. That's why I'm putting quite a lot, so that the plastic should melt and make it beautiful and smooth. I see a little crack in the middle. Well, it's gonna be okay. Like I said, that's the plan, so I'll wait a bit and then I'll show you what's happened. After that, I used alcohol wipes to clean off the surface before I started painting, so that I will have a much better adhesion. Well, at least that's what I was hoping. And yeah, then I just proceeded to paint them in black paint. What will happen next? Will I be able to finish the motorcycle? Will the motorcycle finish me? I don't know. Find out in the next part. Third part of Let's Build a Motorcycle. Moto Guzzi!